My name is TK Sheffield, and I host the WWA's Wispresso Cafe, and I also write stories for readers to laugh and escape. The Wispresso Cafe is produced by the Wisconsin Writers Association. It encourages, educates, and celebrates and promotes writers through its programs and services. Thank you, Ken, our WWA operations guru. We truly cannot do anything without you. When you submit your events to WWA or ask questions, Ken is the person behind the email. So WWA truly cannot function without you, Ken. And I understand he has to rush off, but I just wanted to celebrate Ken and say thank you. And Ken has written several books, including The Breakfast Jury, and I interviewed him last month about that. He's also host of the Midwest Writers Room podcast. And I will see you at the Mukwonago Book Festival, Ken, next Sunday, right?
Next Sunday, yep.
And then I'll see you at Lake Geneva Festival of Books in August. And where else will you be, Ken?
And then towards the third week in June, that weekend, I will be down at the Hedberg Public Library Book Fest in Janesville. So
Great.
stop on down. It's a great event.
Great. And Christine and Peggy, you also might be there. I know you've been there before.
Not this year, but yeah, we've been there a couple times. Yeah, great event.
Great. Well, thank you, Ken. I will see
right.
you next week, and thank you for getting us started off on the right foot, as always. As always.
All right. Have a good show.
Thank you very much. And I see a lot of familiar faces, everybody. I can't thank you enough for joining. This is going to be a great show, and I looked forward to it. As soon as I booked Christine and Peggy, I so much look forward to it. But I just want to give you a couple heads up about what WWA has coming. So we have the Jade Ring contest opening June 1st. So if you have got stories to submit, nonfiction, poetry, or fiction, please submit to that event for that contest. It's called the Jade Ring Contest, and you can find more about that on the WWA website. Also, WWA produces Creative Wisconsin Magazine. So its next issue's deadline is June 15th. So if you'd like to submit something news, writing, or columns for that, please consider that. And again, you can just look at the WWA website and find out more. And the Wispresso Cafe is open for everyone, not just members. So if you're a writer, please tell us about yourself in the chat. Post your link, write your tagline, or say something about what you're doing. And remember, this will be posted to the Midwest Writers Room YouTube channel. So it'll be there and you can share the word about you were here and here's your info. So please go ahead and do that. Feel free to share news about yourself in the chat. I'd love to read it. And if I can, as I interview our guests, I'll be looking at the chat. So I'll make sure to mention you if I can do that. So I just want to let you know. So I was so happy that I could schedule Christine and Peggy for this conversation. And let me introduce our guests, and then we're going to get to questions. And if you have questions, please post them in the chat and I'll get to them. I like to ask them as we go along. Some people prefer at the end, but I like to do it if I can, do it, right in the moment and address your question then. So Christine Desmet is an award-winning author and scriptwriter, writing coach, and instructor. Her Fudge Shop mystery series, set in Door County, Wisconsin, debuted as a bestseller for Barnes & Noble bookstores and was reviewed in the Washington Post. There, she's holding it up there. Latest in the series is Holly Jolly Fudge Folly. I had to read that a couple times, Christine, to make sure I got your title right. And I didn't fudge it up. She also authors the Mischief and Moonstone Romance Mystery Cozy series set near Superior, Wisconsin. The latest two being A Moonstone Wedding and All She Wore Was a Bow. Christine, you're heating things up here. For about 30 years, Christine coordinated retreats and conferences as a distinguished faculty associate in UW-Madison Continuing Studies Department. Christine is currently marketing a new mystery series set in southern Wisconsin, as well as children's picture books. She's a member of Blackbird Writers, Mystery Writers of America, Sisters in Crime, and the Wisconsin Writers Association. Christine critiques query letters and synopses for free. She has a monthly newsletter and quick fix column available at her website. So Christine, feel free to post your website link in the chat if you like. Also, Peggy Joque Williams is an award-winning author who grew up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, where she first discovered her love for writing. She has written screenplays with Christine and mystery novels with her sister-in-law, Mary Joy Johnson. 2 years ago, her first solo novel, Courting the Sun, a novel of Versailles, was published. Oh, that title is to die for. I'm sorry, the cover. That cover is absolutely stunning. I remember when I first saw it and I just fell in love with it. It was published by Black Rose Writing, and this year the sequel, Braving the Dawn, a novel of New France. Another beauty. Look at the sunset. Oh, that's just stunning. Came out in January. Peggy's love of genealogy and historical research drives her recent work. She draws inspiration from her European, French Canadian, and Ojibwa ancestors. She is under contract for a new book, a historical mystery set in 17th century Paris, which will be published next March. Peggy is also a retired elementary school teacher who holds both a bachelor and master's degree in education. She lives in Madison, where she and her husband Mark raised her 2 children, and they now have 3 grandkids and 1 grand puppy. Do you have a picture of the grand puppy? I'm
Oh,
always, I'm always open for the animal cameo. If a dog or a cat comes by the screen, I'll
I
always
can
follow it.
probably pull one up, but
What kind,
don't
what
wait.
kind of grand puppy?
We think she's a mix of Chihuahua and miniature Australian
Oh.
Shepherd.
Oh, I had a Pomeranian, and my little stuffed Pomeranian goes with me everywhere. He's next to me on my desk, always in my purse, and I miss him dearly. So, anyway, thank you for joining Christine and Peggy. This is just going to be delightful. Anybody who else in the audience writes historical, incorporates it, reads it, enjoys it? Oh, great. Kimberly, great. I just love it. And it takes, to me, writing historical fiction takes extra effort because you've really got to go back and do a lot of research. Not that a novel isn't a lot of work, but you're adding, extra elements to it. So, Christine, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Peggy, same thing, same question for you.
I grew up in Wisconsin on a farm and always loved writing. I went to University of Wisconsin, Madison, and journalism, got 2 journalism degrees, and accidentally sort of fell in love with romance writing when I started writing. I'd written some poetry that got published back in college. And then when I was in college, the romance writing boom started. And it was huge. And so I joined Romance Writers of America and got into writing that way. My first full novel was a romantic suspense set in Madison called Love Leads the Parade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a humorous take on parades in Madison, which is a quirky town anyway. So I thought it was perfect. And that never got published because it needs to be rewritten, but it did win the prize, the Golden Heart #1 prize in the country, whatever. And I got to go to Detroit and get my Golden Heart and all that. So it was a fun way to start my career. And then I met Peggy in Wisconsin Screenwriters Forum, and we became screenwriting partners. And we won contests and ended up going out to Los Angeles, and we went to Chicago to the Warner Brothers workshop together to learn how to write sitcoms. And so my career has been filled with a lot of fun things like that, where I surprise myself because I try it, and by golly, it works.
Oh, nice.
It's fun.
Yeah. Congratulations on that. And I think the biggest parade I remember in Madison was the old Halloween celebrations on State Street.
Oh my gosh, yes.
They were more like a mashup than a parade, but that's what I remember in Madison.
Yep.
Peggy, you tell us about yourself a little bit more, just like Christine. What about your writing history?
So I started writing back when I was in, probably middle school or high school. I would say I date myself, but I think we're all of the same. Remembering the Beatles movie, The Hard Day's Night. And my friends and I were going to write the next great Beatles movie. And so we'd get together on the weekend nights and we'd have a notebook and we'd brainstorm and we'd laugh and we'd share the pen and we'd pass the notebook around. And for me, writing was fun. Writing was getting together with other people and creating ideas. I in high school, I was a pretty fluent writer. I won a essay contest that gave me a small scholarship, took me to Washington, D.C., where I did not win the national, but I had won the for the state of Michigan. And I always felt comfortable writing, but not storytelling.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't until I had lots of false starts, but when I got together with Christine and we started going to writing workshops and learning the craft of screenwriting, learning how to tell a story, Christine already had a lot of that knowledge and I have been teaching it. But for me, I had to learn the craft of storytelling.
Hmm.
And I tell people I wished I'd been able to write these historical novels when I was a lot younger, but I wasn't ready to write them then. Writing for me was collaborative. I loved writing with Christine. I still do. I wrote with my sister-in-law. Um, I did a lot of, while I was teaching, I had a side job writing video scripts, corporate, educational, that sort of thing. And that's always collaborative because you're working with the client, you're working with the producer. When
Hmm.
wanted to write these two novels, the historical novels, those were my first solo efforts. And I was pretty intimidated by the thought of writing an entire novel all by myself. But
Well, I just want to point out you're in an excellent, I'm an advocate for Midwest writing, and I think it's such a hotbed and it's becoming more and more popular in terms of the writing landscape and having a voice. And there's two things I just want to point out. Number one is speaking of screenwriting, the 2026 Wisconsin Screenwriters Symposium was just on the campus in April, and it'll be coming around again next April. So if anybody's interested in attending, it was a wonderful event, great experience. And then just to point out the sense of humor about where you are and the inspiration, Madison Magazine for its April issue published The Worst of Madison. And it's a spoof, it's just a spoof issue, but I just love it that they can laugh at themselves and being a city and, things going on. So, anything to make you laugh, think differently, think about new formats for writing. I'm all in it and I think it's fabulous. So thank you for that. So the romance genre. Okay, so Christine, like you said, you went into mystery though. You started out with romance and then moved into mystery. So let's tell us a little bit about that.
Well, romance for me was always about kindness. It was always characters seeking kindness, being kind, looking for that other person who knew how to be kind in their neighborhood. So for me, that was romance. And then I was writing romantic suspense when I started, and I always liked the mystery part of it. And that's why I kind of veered over to writing some mysteries. But then I went back to writing romantic mysteries because
Mhm.
I wanted to find that kind village where people live and have possibilities and opportunities
So you
and
were at the forefront of the cross-genre kind of idea because for a long time it was just no, stay in your lane, stay in your genre, but here you were crossing them right away.
that's true in the 80s, 90s in particular, and then after 2000, a lot of cross genre began to be popular and
Mhm.
people were doing more of it. And you're right, before then we had Agatha Christie, for example. You write a mystery is a mystery, or the romances that came out of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It was just a romance. But then we started experimenting. And a lot of that came about because of computers too, because we could write faster. We could experiment and we could put things aside and still write something else. And we could write six things at once. It felt like anyway, it's not that way really, but it felt like that. So I think there was a lot of things happening at once that brought us into a wider range of romances.
Mhm. Thank you for that. And Sarah, thank you for posting about who you are. Sarah has got a little short bio there in the chat. And Monica has a question. Peggy, I'm going to post this to you because you had brought it up. Any tips on how to make a collaborative writing venture successful?
oh, wow. So different um, writing teams write differently. The way I write with Christine is not the way I write with Mary Joy. I think each team has to find their way. And I'm going to say too that maybe each project could be a little different depending as you learn to trust each other. Trust is probably the biggest thing. To be able to trust another person's ideas, to be able to trust voice. When Mary Joy and I write, and it's a novel, we each write separate chapters. We outline first. For Mary Joy and I, outlining was very, very important, and it was a mystery, so we needed to know where we were going.
Hmm.
And then we would blend our voices in the rewrite and
Hmm.
do that together. Christine and I tend to pass things back and forth, and that takes a different kind of trust and working relationship.
Do each of you take a character? Somebody takes, the protagonist, somebody takes the antagonist, or no, you just focus on the plot.
We didn't separate it that way in our case with the scripts. We talk through the characters.
Right.
There were a few times we'd meet for lunch or something like that, or each other's house, and we would talk through the characters, but we wrote everything, all characters,
Hmm.
and blended them. There was never really an assignment where you're that character and you're that
Right.
other character. We didn't do it that way. In fact, we had a third partner for our award-winning script. He wrote a man out west in the West Coast in Idaho, and he wrote in Washington, excuse me. He wrote the whole thing and said it wasn't working for him, and he wanted partners, and he sent it to us, and then we came aboard as the other part of the team.
Mhm.
So, and we would go through a whole draft. I
Wow.
might go through a whole draft by myself. Then Peggy might go through a whole draft by herself, and that's how we did that one.
Yeah.
So here's the inevitable question. Has it ever gone horribly wrong?
Um, Horribly wrong for me, no, because we're always in search of the better piece of writing or the better scene, and we had a lot of laughs. I tell you, when you write with a partner, you're laughing all the time. Because sometimes you do stupid things with your characters, or you use a word that's like, no, that's not going to work. That is a stupid word. We tell each other that, and we have a lot of laughs. So it's a lot
So
of fun
you heard
working.
it here. Thumbs up for the collabs. That's great. That's excellent news, right? So hopefully, Monica, that helped with your question. So, why do you think romance has endured as such a popular genre, right? Because it's number one, consistently number one. We've got new bookstores opening up. Thirst books, well-read damsel. I mean, romance-only bookstores are a hot trend. So give me your
Mhm.
thoughts.
I think it's I think it's just it's like how certain TV shows are popular. It's escapism for one thing. It's the ability to put yourself in a different world. Sometimes I think, especially when things are not going right in a person's life or in the world in general, we need to escape and have hope. And
Mhm.
romances always have hope. They
Mhm.
tend to, have their things go sour moment, but in the end, things always work out. And even when our lives don't always work out, we can turn to that
Mhm.
and find hope and inspiration from it.
Christine, anything to add on that one?
No, that's a good answer. I agree with that. That's the way it is. And again, I go back to kindness too. We're always assured of finding a kind person or a kind act when we pick up a romance book. We can pick it up and sit up during the weekend and find that kindness that, well, as Peggy said, may not be out there in the world. And we're just tired of the world and we want to just hide.
Hmm. Hmm. Excellent point. Yeah, I agree. My tagline is stories for readers to laugh and escape. And I want to deliver that, even if it's a mystery. I want people to come to my world, Southeast Wisconsin or the North Woods and just lose themselves and also want to be there, to take that trip, to visit that site or do something. Sarah has another question for us, which is a great question, I think, and it applies to everybody here. What advice would you give a new writer who has several genres and platforms they'd like to write about? So advice, experienced authors, and I know we've got a number of them in here. I see Laura Buchanan. She's got her fabulous series, and Lisa's got her book, The Radio Star, and I know Catherine's got a book. So feel free, everyone, post your links in the chat so everyone can learn more about you. But what advice can you give Sarah, that new writer, several genres and platforms?
Boy, is there anything that actually attracts you a little more? I mean, you do have to seek that out and figure it out. Sometimes that takes going to lunch with fellow writers or with good friends that even aren't writers. Whatever resonates with them might be what you want to be writing. But the other thing is, I have a lot of manuscripts that are never going to be published. They were never published. Sometimes you just try things. If it doesn't work, nothing is lost. You've increased your skills. So you go on to the next idea and try that. So sometimes you have to try 2 or 3 or 4 ideas, and you shouldn't feel bad about that.
Peggy,
I
anything?
would say go with your passion, go with the project that you can live with. Well, I know there are some writers who can turn out books very quickly. I'm not one of them. It takes me 3 years to complete a book. And so you have to live with those characters. You have to live with that story. You have to read it over and over and over again as you're revising. So, if you have one that you're more passionate about, that you find yourself talking to other people about, and like Chris said, it starts to resonate with them, give that one a try. I don't think it hurts to try one and get it going and try another, but you do want to be a little careful not to start a lot of projects and not finish anything. That can happen easily to a writer.
Yeah.
So always have like one through project, one that's going to get finished.
Yeah, even if it's short, even if if it's a 10-page story or a 30-page, novella, just, you get that finished. And I had to laugh last year at the conference. Christina Clancy was the keynote speaker, and she made a comment and I just laughed. She said, the block always hits in a novel right about page 70. You get it to page 70, you start with the messy middle, and all of a sudden you feel overwhelmed, like, what am I doing? None of this makes sense. And she just said, right through it, stick to the page, keep coming back. And, that really is the push you need. Right about that point in a novel is when things start to go off the rails, I have found. Lisa's posted her comment. She's got her experiences on Substack. Thank you for that, Lisa, and congrats on Radio Star. I see you on Substack and you're doing so well. Just as a follow-up, okay, so favorite tropes. Nowadays, romance especially, tropes. Tropes are described. The meet cute, the grumpy sunshine. Favorite tropes for either of you?
Well, if I look at my own writing and everything I'm writing, no matter what it is about the return to the hometown. In all of my books, and a little bit of what I'm working on with my children's books, it has to do with the value of returning to a hometown, having that grand adventure in life, but then coming back to something else. And it's all new again because you've had this life and now you're coming back. So that's my trope, returning to the hometown.
That's a consistency that your readers can look forward to too. If
Yeah.
you're giving that to them, they know, okay, we're going to go out
Yes.
take the adventure and return home to the
Yeah.
cozy spot where I feel like myself, or a new version.
Right.
Yeah. What about you, Peggy? Tropes, favorite ones to use? New ones?
I think I would say that one of mine is the character, the heroine who thinks she wants one thing, but really needs something else and needs to find out what that need is. And so maybe she thinks she wants one type of lover, boyfriend, whatever, but what she really needs is a different type. Maybe she wants one type of life. In my historical mystery, she thinks she wants to live in a big house, marry somebody wealthy, and she ends up bypassing the person who loves her most because he's not that. And she ends up needing something else course, it takes the second book before she figures that out. So,
That's an excellent point. You're leading in terms of the character development and your reader experience. So you're sending the reader toward a certain outcome, and then all of a sudden there's the plot twist, which makes for an engaging read, I think.
yeah.
I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Denise Jandusa, she is a VP of Wisconsin Sisters in Crime, and she invites everyone to their monthly programs. You'll see the link. And they have a wonderful one coming up with agents. It's fabulous. And Denise's question is there a topic you wished you were asked to discuss and are dying to talk about? Something new, topical, whatever, either one of you. Thank you, Denise, for that question.
Oh my, you're asking, Peggy and I have have seen the world with writing. I mean, we've written so many different things, so many projects. We love to talk about it all, and I don't know, off the top of my head, I can't think of one that I want to pop out.
Well, AI is the obvious one. I mean, I hate to
Yeah.
present that to you, but
Yeah. I do want to mention that I like writing from a male point of view as well in my work. So that's another aspect of writing that is somewhat new to me. Using that point of view, I have that in my last 3 novellas that I've had published, and so that's a fun area to explore.
Peggy, what about you? Anything you're dying to chat about or new or something that is across your email or your desk and that you haven't talked about yet?
I don't know if it's so much that I'm dying to talk about it, but it's the idea that you can move away from the formula for romance, but then you have to be very careful in marketing. So, in Courting the Sun, it doesn't have the typical romance ending. And so for marketing, I was very hesitant. I prefer not to market it as a historical romance, and it definitely isn't you know, the kind you see in some romantic historical romances. And Braving the Dawn does end with a happily ever after, but it's still very different from the romance kind of trope. And I think that's okay. I think having romance in, any novel adds a layer of depth to it. Whether that romance turns out well or becomes a learning experience for the character.
To that point, and this will lead in, this is a great segue into that question you had sent me earlier. There's a question about Catherine Hansen, her question is, what about the overlap with what it was like to write a memoir based on an old romance? So you've got memoir with romance. So Catherine has got her book, she's got a link there to it. And then that leads me to the question you had, Peggy, about fitting romance into other genres.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have tips or ideas about that?
I think what you need to do is explore what's already out there. Not that you have to copy it, not that you can't, travel your own road, but there's different levels of romance that gets into sex that gets into something, more explicit. And depending on your readers and who you view as your readers, you need to decide what you are comfortable writing, what your passion is for writing. But I do think that the tension that can come through romance is, and the romance can be male female, it can be male male, it can be female female, and what you want is that emotional tension to add depth to your book.
And your heat level in your romances, what is your
I'm totally sweet.
Peggy?
Mine has a couple of scenes that might need a disclaimer ahead, but the books are not meant to be steamy.
Okay.
I have a couple of explicit scenes, but they serve a particular purpose in the story.
Great. Good to know. Good to know. Oh, Lisa had a question. Please talk more about writing from a male point of view. So, romance from a male point of view, storytelling from a male point of view, tips?
Hmm. Well, for me, I read a lot of suspense and mystery written from the male point of view with male characters.
Lori Buchanan.
Yeah, like Lori Buchanan. I read a lot of that and coach a lot of that, like Lori Buchanan. Yeah, so I studied it, and, I look at it and see what's working and what's selling, and that has taught me a lot to look at other good writers and see what they're doing with the male point of view.
One thing that I have noticed is that, and tell me if I'm wrong, either one of you, and give your tips, but dialogue. Men speak differently than women.
Mhm.
Oh,
So,
yes.
how do you show that in dialogue?
Well, I went through the humor route. When I write my male characters, there's always humor. So I like humor, and I felt very comfortable using humor with the male voice. That worked for me.
Peggy, any tips?
In my mystery novels, we have some chapters that are from the female's point of view and some chapters that are from the man's point of view. And one of the things that we did, first off, it had to do with the personalities we gave them.
Mhm.
Our woman character was a retired small town police officer, and she had a certain set of skills. Her husband was a retired college history professor, and he had a different kind of personality and different set of skills. He liked to drive the RV and daydream, and she was responsible for the mechanics. So we kind of flipped things around a little bit that way. Um, After we wrote the book and we had our beta readers, we made sure we had guys as included in our beta reading group so that if we missed anything, just as I had a female former police officer read the first mystery novel, and I had a current male police officer read the second one. And I wanted to know, did we do anything wrong in terms of how the police work? But also to get feedback on our characters, that if we had missed the boat on anything and it just wasn't working, we would get that. So I think when you're writing a character, and that's not just male, female. If you're writing a character that has a different lifestyle than you, if I'm a straight person writing about a gay person, if I'm a gay person writing about straight people, um, if I'm a rural person writing about a city person, you need to rely on the people you've known in life. You need to rely on what you've read, and you need to, I think, get the kind of feedback that will tell you, did you get it right?
Right,
Or are you stereotyping?
right,
Um,
right. The biggest controversy usually in my books is between Packer fans and Bears fans. So I don't think I could write from a Chicago Bear fan point of view. It's the one thing I probably can't do. But yeah, those are excellent. So Peggy, I want to just ask one question about your 17th century novel that's coming up.
Mhm.
How do you go about researching 17th century life? Where do you start?
Oh, I started with these books.
So you have the background of,
I have the
so you have
background.
working
Um,
knowledge, but still.
and I wanted to start a mystery series. And I had actually looked at some ideas for contemporary mysteries. And I had thought maybe I could do something around somebody who likes genealogy, does research that way. Um, because there's a lot of crime that's solved now through genealogy
Mhm.
and DNA, that sort of thing. But anything I came up with was already taken.
Mm.
So I thought, well, I've got all this research I did for the first two books. Let's not waste it.
Yeah.
And I still had to do a ton more research. In the new novel, I do have chapters from both a female and a male point of view. The female is totally fictional. The male is based on a real historical character. Um, the man who was the first official chief of police of Paris back in the 1670s and transformed Paris, lit Paris
Wow.
up, cleaned the streets, that sort of thing, and did a lot of research into his life. And, you know, it's a different kind of story than the first two because of how it's set. So I had to do a lot more research um, into things going on there. It's set in an apothecary, so I had to do that kind of research.
Hmm.
So, but that book was, yeah, that's been fun to write.
Yeah, good for you. Anxious to learn more about it. So, and Denise said, just thanked you for that. And she said, good point. She had a male beta reader for her book as well. So thank you for that question, Denise. Um, have you visited any of the fantastic new romance bookstores? I know Madison has got like 4 bookstores, at least maybe 5. Have you visited any of the other romance only bookstores or had any events at them or anything?
I haven't had the opportunity to do that, but you're right, they're just popping up all over,
Yeah.
and I haven't yet.
Okay.
I've been following them on like Instagram and Facebook,
Yeah.
and the well-read damsel is just doing wonderful, fun things.
Yes.
And not just typical things. Like I think they have hockey night and they have all kinds of things going on.
You
So,
know, that's the beauty. I beg your pardon for interrupting, but that is the beauty, is the just the fun, innovative events and ideas. But anyway, go ahead, Peggy. I'm sorry for
no, I
interrupting.
was just going to say that I'm just starting now to get in touch with some of those bookstores to see if I could do something for them. Um, and there's even there's a couple of mobile bookstores. That's the other thing that's popping up.
Mhm.
Bookstores either on a bus or in a trailer of some sort. And I know there's one up near Green Bay. The one that just opened recently in Madison is romance based. And
Wanderlust bookstore. Yeah,
yeah.
they were on, was it last month? I think I had them on just, the pregame part
Mhm.
of the show, and they're fabulous, and they're showing up around Madison, and they've just
Yeah.
got such great energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we've talked about books. I'm going to move a little bit more into writing craft in our last 10 minutes or so. So, tips for authors, what can they do better? And I know you've seen it all, right? You've been in the game for a long time. You've got that eye of experience. What can you offer everybody who's listening to improve what they're doing? Hmm.
From my perspective as a writing coach, it's scene work. We write books, we write screenplays, we write anything scene by scene. And so to just learn how to write a good scene with a good beginning, middle, and end to it, or a cliffhanger or whatever, that's where to start. And I see a lot of people struggling with how to write a scene. And often they will go on forever, or it's too short, or, there's all that angst that the writer might have. So it's how to write a scene.
Right. Thank you for that. Yeah, when I'm writing a scene, I always think, what does this character want? What do they
Mhm,
want? And sometimes, they
mhm,
can't express it. They hide it.
mhm.
They misdirect. So
Yeah.
anyway, Peggy, what advice do you have for writers?
I think to be playful with it, to have fun with it. Even if it's a serious um, topic that you're writing about, try different things, try different voices. And I had a friend of mine that's in my critique group, and she wrote one that would be in the women's genre, not a romance, but with some magical realism elements. And she just wasn't getting the feedback she wanted when she would send it out. And I said, well, try writing the first chapter um, or try journaling about it in the first person, or try the first chapter in the first person and see what that does for it. And she did it just as an experiment and found out that's where her voice was. And she ended up rewriting the whole book in that voice. And, she was kind of like, oh, I spent all that time on it. Well, that's part of the learning, that's part of the craft. And sometimes you have to do that. Um, Ruth Ozaki, I think is her last name. She wrote For the Time Being. She was, I think, a big red um, book author here. And she said she did the same thing. She had written an entire novel and then ended up rewriting it in a different voice. And that ended up being a bestseller. Um, Not to be afraid of that process.
Great. Thank you for that. That's wonderful, wonderful, extremely. So in about 1 minute, that was like a microcosm of being a writer. So Sarah has a question, two things. And Christine, you're working on a children's book. So her question is, where can I find children's book illustrators to collaborate with? And then her question is also, how can we find a writing coach? Well, Sarah, you're in luck because Christine.
You're talking to two writing coaches right here with Peggy
Oh,
and
there you go.
Christine. Yes.
So
Illustrators are all over, and many are in Wisconsin and every state and around the world. The Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators is what you need to belong to and ask the question there. And there are many in Wisconsin. If you're in Wisconsin, the SCBWI has many illustrators who are part of that group. And you write to them, you send them an email and say, hey, can we work together? And what do you charge? And can I see samples of your work? And you go from there.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully that's helpful, Sarah. So one question for you, and this one is a toughie. First pages, the first page, the first line, that can trip us all up, right? Usually we start with backstory, right? We start too early, and then you think the reader has to know X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden that inciting incident comes about. So tell us your advice for first pages.
Oh boy, there's so many different styles. I think I'll hand this one over to Peggy. Peggy, you know all, don't you?
They're tough.
Yeah, first pages are write whatever comes to your head.
Yeah.
Because you cannot revise if you don't have something on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that I will rewrite those first pages a couple times. However, don't get caught up in it. Don't feel like you can't move on until it's perfect. Because one of the things I found is that when you get to the end of the book, there might be something either throughout the book or at the end of the book that can go back into those first pages. So, for instance, in Braving the Dawn, how it ended up, and it was an ending I didn't see coming, I was able to foreshadow that in the first pages in the rewrite. So, just get your story started. You might end up cutting a lot of it because you don't need a lot of backstory in the first pages. You can dribble that backstory in as you go, and as it's needed.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you so much for that and everybody, so listening, get it on the page. And if you have to cut it, don't get mad at yourself and think you're a bad writer. We've all done that, right? Sometimes you have to write 2, 3, 4 pages a chapter before you really realize what you want to say.
Yeah.
So, and if you're looking for a way to insert backstory, has anybody watched the TV show called Bookish on PBS?
Yeah, a couple episodes of it.
Yeah, the first episodes, if you want to study how to insert backstory lightly and delicately and just thread it through, watch the first couple episodes of Bookish, Bookish, on PBS. It's a period mystery drama. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, a period piece. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Fascinating. And if you just want an easy way to analyze how to insert backstory in the beginning of a story, just go take a peek at it and hopefully you'll enjoy it. I thought that was so good. And Sarah, sorry, I'm the admin on this, and so I don't want to leave the page and insert SCBWI, that link. But if someone can for Sarah, that would be great. So it's just SCBWI, and you'll see it, and that'll be where you can find illustrators and hopefully someone to collaborate. And then don't forget, coaches Christine and Peggy are here too if you want to reach out to them.
Yeah,
So,
and email us and we can look up some of this stuff for you too. So, feel free to email us with questions. We're happy to help.
okay, great. Thank you for that. So one last question. We got about 5 minutes here. How do you overcome writer's block and stay with it?
Oh boy. As some people know, I do not believe in writer's block. You just write something, you write anything. I don't care how silly you feel. You might even feel stupid. You just write something. The other trick is to write a log line at the beginning of every chapter or even a page. What's the log line of the story? What's the summary of that scene? What do you want it to be? Just put that in there and then write something about that. Just keep that log line in mind. And that's how you can write a whole screenplay or novel, even memoir right away. What is that log line? And a lot of writers use that pattern of putting a log line at the top of every chapter.
Great. Peggy?
So I don't experience traditional writer's block, but sometimes I won't know how to solve a problem in the story, which maybe is what causes the writer's block for some people. For some people, I think there's an emotional element to it. But when I encounter a problem that I'm facing and I don't know where to go with it, um, before I go to bed at night, before I fall asleep, I challenge myself. And I have a little phrase that I use. I think people would make up their own. Mine is Muse of the universe. Please help me solve this. And I would say 9 times out of 10 before I fall asleep, I know how to solve the block in the
Oh,
story. But that's a
you,
story block, not a writer's block.
okay. Muse of the universe. Please help me solve. There we go. Wow, this has been fabulous. Uh, Denise has got a question. Favorite craft books on writing?
Read everything by Donald Moss, Maass. Read everything by him. He also has a workbook on how to write your first novel. It's very helpful. So everything by Donald Moss, start there. It's wonderful.
Peggy?
There's a fun book called Saving the Cat.
Mhm.
And there's Saving the Cat for the novelist. There's some for different, one for screenplay, one for novelist. And oh, I don't have the author in my head. There's a woman who's written a wonderful book on character. Well, if people want a list of books, they email us. I wished I'd
Good.
had
So,
thought of that.
Steering the Craft by Ursula Le Guin. Thank you, Monica. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
So if you want, Christine and Peggy, if you can, put your email or your links in the chat so everybody can get a hold of you. And this has been just delightful. Thank you so much. This is like this is exactly what I was hoping it was going to be, which is a master class in 50 minutes. So anything you'd both like to add before we go?
This has been delightful, and you just take a chance and have fun. I wrote my first romance novel because I wanted to have fun and be among other romance writers, and I just did it. I just dive in, have fun, meet the other writers and the agents and editors, and just get into it. It's fun. It's a fun life.
Peggy?
Thank you so much for having us and for everybody being here and networking and helping other authors and allowing other authors to help you is how we grow. And I know there are some people who are maybe jealous of other people's success, but don't ever feel that way. Know that we build on each other, we support each other, and that's just one of the awesome parts about being an author.
Yeah, the writing community is generous and fun and encouraging, and hopefully you all, learn something from this and can take away a lot of information. And just remember, WWA offers so many things. We've got the Jade Ring contest coming up. Creative Wisconsin Magazine is your chance to be published and build that writer's resume. And then there's a conference in the fall. We've got critique groups, Midwest Writers Room podcast, and book reviews. There's so many opportunities for you. So take advantage of those things as a member. If you're not a member, consider joining. And this has just been so much fun. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thank you to my guests and also to Ken. And to those who are celebrating, happy Mother's Day this weekend and happy Grand Puppy Day if you're celebrating that as well. And it's been just great to see everybody. Have a wonderful weekend and take care.